I want to talk about some of the scientific units of measurement we're going to use this year in biology. Sometimes they're called SI units for System International. Sometimes we just call them the metric system. So hopefully these are units that you're somewhat familiar with, but we want to go over them again because we're going to be using them this year. So time, you're looking at the bottom of this video and you're trying to figure out how much more time till it's over, right? Well, that's counting seconds, right? Seconds or minutes or hours. Those are all units of time, but the basic unit is the second. Length. So if you're talking about measuring something, you might measure it in inches or feet or yards or miles. Those aren't scientific units. We're not going to use those in biology. Remember, we're using metric, and the basic unit for length is the meter. How long is a meter? Well, a yardstick is 36 inches. Meter stick is about 39.5 inches. So 100 meters is a little bit longer than 100 yards. You probably know that if you've ever run track or done swimming in metric pools versus English pools, pools and yards. Mass, again, you think about ounces and pounds. Those are English units. They're not scientific. The unit for mass is the gram. How much is a gram? Well, 454 grams are in 1 pound. So a gram is a very small unit. We'll oftentimes use a kilogram for larger units. Like your mass, we would use kilograms because the gram is so small. And we'll talk about some of those prefixes we use for these units. Volume, so the volume we use, again, not ounces, not gallons, it's the liter. And fortunately, about 20 years ago, soda companies started making this, the 2-liter bottle. And now every American knows what a liter is because it's half of their 2-liter soda bottle, right? So we all know what a liter is. They now even sell soda in 1-liter bottles. So you can get 1 liter or 2 liter. You have a pretty good idea of what a liter is, right? Somewhere around half a gallon. The next unit is temperature, and again, it was hot today. It was 91 degrees. That's Fahrenheit. We don't use that. That's not a scientific unit. We use Celsius, right? When you get into chemistry, you'll use Kelvin. That's for chemistry. Since Celsius, the range goes from 0, freezing point of water, to 100 degrees Celsius, the boiling point of water. That's pretty much the range of all life. Now, there's some extremophiles that live outside of that, but because Celsius goes sort of from the liquid range of water, that's what we use in biology. And so you can see if it was 74 degrees, which it is probably in the classroom, that's about 22 degrees Celsius. So we'll be doing some conversions where we convert Celsius to Fahrenheit and Fahrenheit to Celsius in a lab this week. Okay, so again, I talked about prefixes, like sometimes we use kilograms instead of grams, so let's go through some of those. The first one I already mentioned, kilo. You've heard of a kilogram. You've heard of a kilometer. If you run cross country, you run a 5K. That's 5 kilometers, which is about 3.1 miles. So that's 1,000 meters. Kilogram, 1,000 grams, and so forth. And again, 1,000 is also 10 to the third. We can get much bigger than that. 1,000,000 of units would be a megagram, megameter. We hear about this a lot with computers and memory storage, right? Megabytes, and then 1,000,000,000 is gigameters. Now you could take every planet in the solar system, line them up, and that would not be 1 gigameter, 1 billion meters, right? Many stars are not even 1 gigameter long. So we're talking about a pretty big number there, 1,000,000,000. And then a trillion is tera. And with computers, you've probably heard about terabytes. That's an enormous amount of memory, 1 terabyte, right? 1 trillion units. Okay, those are really large units. We're not going to use those in biology, but we do use the smaller units when we look at cells and cell structures. So we'll look at those right now. The first one is pretty easy, right? A cent is 1/100th of a dollar. So centa is 1/100th. You know what a centimeter is, right? It's about the width of my pinky right there. Going smaller, the French or Latin word for 1,000 is mille. So milli means not million, but 1,000th of a unit. And the eyedroppers we use when we measure liquids for a lot of the labs, if you fill it up to the top of the column, you can see in the bottom of the screen there, That's 1 milliliter, 1,000th of a liter. Okay, you can see there's other units on the column of that eyedropper, right, that are even smaller, and they're funny little symbols that you probably don't recognize. And those are micrometers, or I'm sorry, micrometers. Okay, and in this case, a micrometer or a microliter is 1/1,000,000th of that unit, or 10 to the negative 6, right? So 500 microliters is half of 1 milliliter. Okay, and we'll use micrometers quite a bit when we look at cell size. A red blood cell might be 10 micrometers wide. A bacteria might be 1 micrometer wide. So very small units, but very useful when we're talking about things like cells and cell structures. Getting even smaller, a billionth. So if we're talking about a water molecule, that is 1/10 of a billionth of a meter, very small. A glucose, which is a simple sugar, is 1/1000th of a meter. And the term we use for a billionth is a nano. You may have heard of nanotechnology. It's now this technology that incorporates or developing really, really small particles to do things. And you can see that things like antibodies, viruses, and bacteria, very, very small structures, and we have to get down to the billionth of a meter, a nanometer. Okay, let's talk about derived units now. A derived unit is when you have to incorporate more than one unit to figure something out. So for example, if I want to figure out what's the volume of this pizza I'm going to eat for lunch, and I know the radius is z and the depth is a, and I want to calculate the volume. Well, you know, to calculate the volume, you've got pi times z times z times a, which spells pizza. Isn't that cute? But anyway, that's how you would calculate the area of a cylindrical object like a pizza, right? So these are derived units. We won't be calculating the volume of pizzas, but we will be calculating things like density. So a density is two different units, right? We have mass over volume. And typically the small solutions we'll use in biology class will be grams over milliliters. So let's look at an example. Water has a density of 1 gram per milliliter. That's a good kind of benchmark there. Anything that's greater than 1 gram per milliliter will sink in water. Anything that is less than 1 gram per milliliter will float in water. So let's look at a problem. We're going to be working on some problems in a little lab this week. So an object has a mass of 80 grams and a volume of 60 milliliters. What is its density, and will it float? So I want you right now to pause the video and take a piece of scratch paper and see if you can figure that out. What's the density of this object, and will it float? So go ahead and hit pause. Okay, did you solve it? All right, well, let's see if you did it right. So you said mass over volume should be 80 grams over 60 milliliters, okay, which should be about 1.3 grams per milliliters. Now, if you got 1.33, that's okay. There's something called significant figures, which we're not going to do in biology. You'll do them in chemistry next year, but yeah, round off to 1.3. Anything close to that, and you are spot on. Now, the next question was, will this float or will this not float? Okay, so I said if it's greater than 1, it will sink. It will be heavier than water, density greater than water, so it will sink. Okay, let's look at another example of unit conversions. Okay, and this time let's look at mass conversion. So oftentimes we get materials and they're in English units of pounds, and 454 grams in a pound. So if I have a buck and it's 2.5 pounds, what's its mass in kilograms? Okay, because it's going to be a lot of grams, so I want to use kilograms here. So how would we solve that? Well, 454 grams equal 1 pound. Since those units are the same, if I said they equal each other, one over the other has to equal 1 because they're the same. So 454 grams over 1 pound equals 1, and 1 pound over 454 grams equals 1. I can use these to convert units. So if I have a unit in pounds, 2.5 pounds, and I want to convert to grams, which one of these formulas would I use? Go ahead, pause the video, and see if you can solve this problem. Go ahead and pause right now. Okay, you done? Let's see if you did it right. Okay, so obviously I want to multiply it by 454 grams over 1 pound because my pound units are going to cancel, right? And when I multiply, I get 2.5 times 454 grams, which gives me 1,135 grams. Okay, now, is that the correct answer? Trick question, right? No, I asked for kilograms. So convert that to kilograms. Well, there's 1,000 kilograms in a gram, right? So that would be 1.35 kilograms. And again, with some significant figures, we'd round that off to probably 1.4. Anyway, these are the kind of problems that we're going to be solving this week in lab. So let's look at one more. How about a unit conversion for distance? And again, if you're a runner and you're running 5Ks and 10Ks and marathons and half marathons, you have to do this all the time. You're calculating your miles per hour, but you're running a 10K, so you're doing these unit conversions. So 1 kilometer equals 0.62 miles. So again, since those two equal each other, 0.62 miles over 1 kilometer equals 1 because they're the same value. And 1 kilometer over 0.62 miles equals 1. So let's try one last problem. How many kilometers is in half a marathon? Oh, and half a marathon is 13.1 miles. So go ahead and see if you can solve this problem. Go ahead and pause the video and solve it. Okay, to solve it, so again we have we want to get kilometers and we're given miles. So which of those formulas are we going to use? Well, again, we want to have miles on the bottom so that our miles, when we multiply, cancel, and 13.1 times 1 kilometer divided by 0.62 equals 21.1 kilometers. So if you got that answer, gold star for you. You are correct, and we'll work on some of these problems in lab, and you've got a good head start on that. Okay, that's it.